Japanese motorcycles don't have the longest warranty. They don't have the most exciting engineering story. They're rarely the bike that makes your heart race in the showroom. And yet, year after year, they're the bikes riders trust the most once the newness wears off. Here's something most buyers don't realize. BMW, Ducati, Triumph, and Harley-Davidson all offer longer factory warranties than Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, or Kawasaki. And a Japanese sport bike, despite its reputation, can still drain your wallet through tires, insurance, and crash risk faster than a less reliable bike ever could through repairs. So if Japanese bikes aren't winning on warranty, and they aren't winning on drama, what exactly are they winning? This is the story of why the motorcycle that impresses you on day one isn't always the motorcycle that earns your trust on year 5. Most riders shop with the same unspoken assumptions. More expensive means better. A longer warranty means more reliable. A European badge means premium. And Japanese motorcycles, reliable, sure, but a little boring. These assumptions aren't crazy, they're just incomplete. Take the warranty argument. On paper, BMW Motorrad backs its bikes with 3 years and 36,000 miles. Ducati and Triumph both offer 24 months with unlimited mileage. Harley-Davidson typically matches that at 2 years, unlimited mileage. Compare that to Honda's NC750X DCT, which comes with a 1-year transferable, unlimited mileage, limited warranty, objectively the shortest number on this list. If warranty length were the whole story, Honda would look like the risky choice. It isn't. And that gap between what the paperwork promises and what ownership actually feels like is exactly where this video lives. Here's a second data point worth sitting with: resale. Japanese middleweights with long unchanged production runs, bikes like the SV650, routinely hold value better on the used market than comparable European bikes from the same era, because buyers trust that a 5-year-old model is mechanically identical to a brand new one. A used buyer is not gambling on a redesign they have never seen tested. That is not a warranty benefit. It is a trust benefit, and it shows up in cash. So here's the real question this video is built to answer. If it is not warranty length, and it is not brand mythology, what is actually driving the long-term trust that Japanese motorcycles have built with owners? The answer has less to do with the bikes breaking less, and everything to do with what happens in the years after the warranty is gone. To understand why Japanese motorcycles keep winning the ownership game, you have to stop asking which bike is more reliable and start asking which bike is easier to live with when something eventually needs attention. Because something always eventually needs attention. That is not a knock on any brand, it is just physics and mileage. The real difference is what ownership looks like on the other side of that moment. Japanese manufacturers have spent decades building around a specific philosophy: conservative engineering. Fewer bleeding-edge technologies, fewer unproven components, platforms that often stay in production, largely unchanged, for years. Suzuki is the clearest example of this instinct. The SV650 and V-Strom 650 lean on architecture that has been refined over a long production run rather than reinvented every few seasons. Why does that matter to an owner instead of an engineer? Because a platform that has been on the road for years has already had its problems found and fixed by thousands of other riders before you. The unknowns get sanded down over time. That is not exciting on a spec sheet. It is extremely valuable in a garage. Compare that to a manufacturing philosophy built around emotional identity and customization, the world of Harley-Davidson and Indian touring models. Their engineering priorities are not wrong. They are just aimed somewhere else: heritage, sound, dealer culture, the feeling of the machine. That's a legitimate reason to buy a motorcycle. It's just a different transaction than the one Suzuki, Honda, Yamaha, and Kawasaki are optimizing for. There's a third philosophy worth naming because it doesn't fit neatly into either camp: performance-first engineering, the world Ducati and BMW largely live in. Here, the priority is feel, response, and cutting-edge chassis and engine technology. And historically, that meant shorter maintenance intervals as the trade-off for that feel. It's not that this philosophy ignores the owner. It's that it's willing to ask more of the owner's wallet and schedule in exchange for a sharper riding experience. That trade-off is about to get tested. And then there's Honda's NC750X DCT, which reveals the conservative philosophy in its purest form. It isn't built to be exciting on paper. It's built around low-stress engine character, real storage space, and commuter logic, decisions that trade showroom excitement for something an owner actually feels 2 years in. Fewer surprises, lower running costs, a bike that fits into daily life instead of demanding attention from it. This is the pattern underneath everything in this video. Japanese manufacturers frequently design for the owner after the sale, not just the buyer in the showroom. European and American brands at their best are frequently designing for the emotional or performance experience at the point of purchase. Neither approach is wrong, but only one of them tends to compound in value the longer you keep the bike. This is the part most owners never get told at the dealership, which is honestly the whole reason this channel exists. Let's start at the extreme end, because it breaks the assumption most people walk in with that this is only a story about cheap bikes. The Honda Goldwing is a premium, heavy, expensive touring motorcycle. It is not the affordable, reliable Honda stereotype. And that's exactly why it matters here. The Goldwing proves that Japan's ownership advantage isn't a budget consolation prize. It scales all the way up into the luxury touring category, where riders are putting on serious highway miles and need the machine to simply keep working, trip after trip. If Japanese ownership confidence only existed on cheap commuters, it wouldn't mean much. The fact that it shows up at the top of the price range, too, tells you it's a genuine engineering philosophy, not a budget compromise. Quick gut check. If you had to guess right now, is the safer long-term bike the one with the longer warranty or the one with the longer track record? Hold that thought. Drop down to the mainstream middleweight tier, where the philosophy becomes almost a formula. The 2026 Yamaha MT-07 starts at $8,599, manufacturer's suggested retail price plus destination. The 2026 Kawasaki Ninja 650 ABS comes in at $8,199. Honda's NC750X DCT sits at roughly $9,499. None of these are premium machines, and none pretend to be. What they offer instead is an enormous owner base, a simple parts and service ecosystem, and engine platforms so widely used that almost any independent mechanic in the country has already worked on one. That's the mainstream Japanese formula: approachable price, mechanical simplicity, and a maintenance experience with very few unknowns left to discover. A widely used platform isn't just a marketing phrase. It's the difference between a mechanic who's fixed your exact engine 200 times and one who's guessing. But nothing makes the case for boring is valuable better than the Kawasaki KLR 650. The KLR 650 isn't fast. It isn't modern feeling. Nobody is buying it to impress anyone. And that's the entire point. It's a different tier of the same thesis. A motorcycle that wins ownership, not by dazzling you, but by being simple enough to understand, repairable enough to trust in the middle of nowhere, and basic enough that very little about it can surprise you. Adventure riders in particular gravitate toward that low fear equation, because when you're hundreds of miles from a dealership, exciting is the last thing you want your bike to be. It's the mainstream formula taken to its logical extreme. Simplicity not as a cost saver, but as a survival strategy. Notice something. None of these bikes have been described as the most reliable. They've been described as the most understandable. That's not the same claim, and it's the one this video is actually making. If this video only used Japanese examples, though, it would start to feel like propaganda instead of an investigation. So consider the Ducati Monster V2. Remember that performance-first philosophy from a few minutes ago, shorter intervals as the price of sharper feel? The Monster V2 just broke its own rule. Its valve clearance interval now stretches to 28,000 miles, a number that quietly dismantles the old joke about Ducati ownership. It doesn't mean Ducati ownership matches a Suzuki middleweight in overall complexity or cost. It likely doesn't. But it proves the European side of this story isn't standing still. So back to that gut check. Longer warranty or longer track record? By now, the honest answer is already forming. It depends what year of ownership you're standing in. Section 5 settles it for good. And Harley-Davidson and Indian touring models prove something the numbers alone can't. Some owners aren't optimizing for lowest risk at all. They're optimizing for identity, sound, community, and the dealer culture built around the brand. Financially, it may not be the rational choice. Emotionally, for that rider, it's still the right one. Ownership confidence isn't only a numbers game. If you own one of the bikes we just covered, tell me in the comments whether this matches your experience or whether I got it wrong. That back and forth is honestly why I keep making these. Subscribe if you want to be in that conversation next time too. So does this mean Japanese motorcycles are simply better across the board? No. Here's the biggest exception. Reliability is not the same as total cost of ownership. A Japanese sport bike can still be genuinely expensive to own, not because the engine fails, but because tires wear fast, insurance runs high, and the risk profile of aggressive riding brings its own costs that have nothing to do with the reliability of the machine underneath you. The engine platform, being unbreakable, doesn't protect you from a track day crash or a high-performance tire bill. Here's the second exception, and it's the one that finally closes that earlier gut check. The warranty comparison genuinely favors European and American brands, full stop. For a rider who trades bikes every 2 or 3 years and never plans to own one out of warranty, that longer coverage window may matter more than anything else discussed in this video. The Japanese ownership advantage is real, but it's specifically an advantage that shows up after the warranty ends. So the honest answer is, neither warranty length nor track record wins on its own, and it depends entirely on how long you're actually going to keep the bike. Here's a third exception: high mileage touring riders. Someone racking up 20,000 miles a year burns through tires, chains, and brake components on any platform fast enough that reliability stops being the deciding factor, and the deciding cost becomes wear item availability and price. A Goldwing owner and a Harley tourer doing identical mileage may find their wear item bills converge, even if their engine reliability doesn't. Simplicity helps less when the parts wearing out aren't the engine at all. And here's the exception that matters most philosophically. For riders like the Harley and Indian touring crowd, the emotional and cultural ownership experience is the actual product being purchased. Dealer culture, customization, the sound, the identity, none of that shows up on a reliability chart. And none of it is irrational just because it doesn't optimize for lowest lifetime cost. A rider who knowingly pays more and still feels they made the smarter choice isn't wrong. They're simply optimizing for something this video hasn't been measuring. One older data point is worth mentioning honestly, with its limits stated clearly. A past Consumer Reports owner survey found that Yamaha, Suzuki, Honda, and Kawasaki had lower predicted failure rates by year 4 than Harley-Davidson, Triumph, Ducati, and BMW. That's useful historical context for why this reputation exists in the first place, but it is old data, and it should never be mistaken for a claim about how any of these brands are built in 2026. The honest conclusion isn't Japanese wins, case closed. It is this: the Japanese ownership advantage is conditional. It depends on how long you keep the bike, what you value, and what happens after the warranty runs out. So go back to where we started. Japanese motorcycles don't win the longest warranty. They don't win the emotional argument, and they don't win the technology showcase. For a while, it can look like they're not winning anything at all. But ownership isn't judged in the showroom. It is judged 3, 5, 10 years later, after the new bike smell is gone, after the warranty card is long expired, when the only thing that matters is whether you still trust the machine in your garage. That's the environment Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, and Kawasaki have been quietly engineering for all along. Not the sale, the years after the sale. And here's the uncomfortable part. Most riders only figure this out the hard way, usually on their second bike, after the first one taught them what they actually value once the excitement wears off. You don't have to learn it that way. Here's the one lesson worth taking with you. The best ownership decision and the most exciting purchase are not always the same motorcycle, and the smartest riders learn to tell those two feelings apart before they sign the paperwork, not 5 years into it. If this kind of ownership first thinking is useful to you, subscribe to Throttle Insider, because the next video we publish will probably save you from a mistake the showroom floor was never going to warn you about.